first question I have for you today is you walk down the street, you see something about AI. You see new products on the buses going past, whether in your little tiny village like I live or the city centre. You go on LinkedIn, you go on Facebook, everything seems AI. There's so much buzz, so much excitement in business and in life. But my question is that excitement also being felt at school and multi-academy trust level, or is there a little bit more hesitation, a little bit more caution, a little bit more not sure about this? And I'd love to pose the question to everybody, but we'll start with Melissa this afternoon. Melissa, if you don't mind.
Of course, I think, to be completely honest with you, in my setting, it's a bit of fear. We're all a little, so I have 167 staff and 160 children, so we're big staff team, and I think fear is the best descriptive word of what we feel about AI. I think for us at the level of need that we're working with, we're just unsure. What does it look like for us? How's it going to work for us? It's such an individualized world in SLD. Of course, all schools are. Making things relevant for individuals is the purpose of what we all do, but it's a different level when you're working with SLD children. And I think a big question is, how does AI do that? How does it really know that personalized approach and to know that child inside out? Can it? And then obviously, can it then support with things like lesson planning and personalized plans and targets? I think that for me is the biggest fear. Are we going to lose that personalized touch maybe if we go too fast with it?
Thanks, Melissa. That's great. Gareth, Peter?
Yeah. I think for us as a secondary school, I think it's fairly mixed. So we've got adopters, staff that really embrace it and have been embracing it for a number of years, whilst we've also got staff that are avoiders. And I think as a staff body and teaching staff, I think I speak probably throughout the country, we've got cynics that sit on there that see things. I've seen this before. Well, like AI isn't something they've seen before. So it's about embracing it, but it's about getting those cynics on board, certainly as a school for us. So it's those staff that kind of aren't embracing it, but recognise it's going to happen or something's going to happen and bringing them on board. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And from a Matt-wide perspective, Peter, what's your thoughts? I mean, this is a same question, but I guess completely different for you in many ways.
In a way different, but in a way similar, because a Matt obviously is a collective of a family of schools, and whilst we don't have bespoke special practice within our trust because we're effectively mainstream 2 to 16, I think I'd begin with echoing what Melissa said. I think we begin with some healthy caution, but I think we've got to sort of really define what we mean by AI, because AI was conceived in the 1950s, and the first application was predictive text, which then moved into our Nokia mobile phones in the 90s and noughties. So it's always been with us. And obviously industry and military applications might have had that, way before we did. But I think it's now arrived on our shores. The genie is out of the bottle, and I think it's a bit, as I've alluded to, I'm ancient. I think we're back to the early days of when the internet arrived, and we didn't quite know what to do with the internet, and then all of a sudden the internet grew exponentially. AI is that sort of, fifth horizon, isn't it? Now, as a Matt, it will depend on the culture and context of your Matt. Some Matts are very dictatorial, some Matts are very altruistic. We took the decision in 2017 to start working with Google Education UK. So I wear my heart on my sleeve. We're a Google trust. And obviously the large tech corporations, Microsoft, Apple and Google have got their native AIs, their learning models, and they're trying to reassure people by having that as an augmentation that sits with your Google Workspace or, if you've got the full Gemini. So I think it is about understand where you think AI can assist and help. And I think the first fear to quell is we're not in a scenario where the weaving machines are going to make people redundant. I think we're in a world of co-collaboration and AI augmenting. So if I give a very practical example, Melissa, we obviously use Gemini. It's as safe as an internal environment as you can make it. And we can put anonymized EHCPs in around specific categories and then ask it to write a brand new one based on a certain amount of additional input. So the time to generate the raw component part of the HCP is slashed from hours to minutes, and then the SEN professional can then take a look at the output and go, can I use my professional wisdom and knowledge to add to that? So there's a lot of what you might class as the menial things that we can get out of the way and let our creatives work with the source material, if that makes sense. And as a MAT, we have an AI strategy and an approach.
Yeah.
We've done proof of concept. We've funded half of our staff, teaching staff and support staff, and all of our leaders to have a Gemini license for 6 months, and then it flips over to the other half of the workforce to use in the first instance as a tidy up all your paperwork and everything and get everything streamlined, because it will do those tasks for you. And then, much like the early onset of YouTube, read what it has generated, use your professional judgment, and then maybe ask it to reiterate it as well. And that's not even going into producing images or videos or things like that. I think it starts small and scale it up.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much, Peter. Tim, I'm going to ask the same question, but the twist, as you would expect. And ladies and gentlemen, just to make you aware, Tim is from an organization, not a school or a MAT. So the organization is called Edu Intelligence as a part of Wellbe. So Tim's view and lens is, yes, with a former head teacher hat on, but also now as a developer of AI. So same question, Tim, but with a twist. Your excitement as a developer of AI and what you believe it can give schools and multi-academy trust, Tim.
Yeah, and I think, just to echo what everybody said, when we talk to schools and trusts across the country and internationally on a daily basis, you'd expect, and we have a whole range of different feelings and views from people who are completely skeptic and scared, almost, for want of a better word, to those who are embracing it, and maybe embracing it without the considerations that other people in this room and that your trust seems to have done as well in terms of their safety and security pieces. I think, obviously, as a company, we're helping schools embrace AI, particularly around data and making the most of their data as AI. And I think when people see those kind of time savings that you can make from those in a secure way, that's what really gets people on board. Does that make sense? And I think, and I've been at a data conference today outside of education, and everybody keeps saying it's the outcome first, not the tool. And I think that's really key for AI, about what do we want to achieve? And then, okay, we can achieve that. Oh, yes, and one of the tools we can use to achieve that is AI. The other half is really good teacher and leader judgment, like we all have, and that doesn't go out the window. Nobody's going to run their school completely via AI, and nor we want that to happen. And I think it's fun. I think as a company, we try to take, and I definitely try to take with both sides of those hats, a really nuanced approach to how we're saying AI can use. And there's part of our products that doesn't use AI at all because it doesn't need to. And we could try and put a badge in it saying, oh, it's AI here and here and here, but we don't need AI to do some things. and neither do schools and trusts. And I think it is kind of that comparison. But I say the whole spectrum is heard in this call is definitely reflected in the cross-section we speak to. Definitely about kind of, yeah, how people feel and that thing. It's changed over the past year about, definitely. There's been far more particular trust level, trusts starting to embrace AI, have AI strategies, which is really great. And I think 100% that's what needs to happen. I think we also meet some customers who say AI is not being used in my trust or schools, and we kind of have to reflect back saying, are you sure? It's kind of, I'm sure there's some teachers that are using ChatGPT or Gemini in a public version, which is far less secure than maybe if you've got something internal and governed.
Thank you very much, Tim. That's really interesting. And I guess I don't want a lot of today to be about the negatives or the massive concerns, but I think we need one more question just on this. And I'm going to go back to Melissa, and then we'll go back through the panel again. So Melissa, what is your staff? So you sat around an SLT meeting, AI comes up. What is the biggest concerns that you think you have? So if there is one thing AI related that you think, oh my goodness, like I remember when ChatGPT came out and it was all over the news and everyone's like, what? Children can do what using this thing? Obviously that's my contribution. That was my kind of what is going on here moment within education. But similar kind of question for you, Melissa. What are your main concerns leading that school as head?
I think Peter touched on it. I think the whole concept of being able to put something in, getting something back, and then having maybe the expectation that all staff are going to be able to take that and have the knowledge, skills and understanding to be, especially in our setting, to say, well, actually, so with this child with these really complex needs, is this relevant? And of course, some of my teachers and staff absolutely have that because they've been here years, they've been in the profession years. I think for newer staff and for staff that are new to special ed or new to severe learning difficulties or just new to education full stop, they're not going to have, through no fault of their own, they're not going to have that skills and understanding to be able to make those judgments. And I think the fear is then we are then spitting out things that aren't personalised or aren't as individualised as we would want them to. So the level of support that would then be needed from mentors or leadership to make sure that, and then where are we saving time actually because someone else is having to come in and do that kind of fact checking. And there's that age-old thing, isn't it? We only know what we know, and new teachers aren't going to know because nobody's taught them yet. And if something in an AI perspective has spat something out and reads wonderfully, and you think, well, this is great, but actually someone with a more experienced set of eyes come in and says, well, yes, it is, but not for that child's needs. That's a completely different child. I think that for us would be one of the biggest concerns probably. And also another one for me is kind of the sadness that I feel with the teaching profession. We're inherently a really creative bunch. That's why a lot of us go into teaching. We are, especially in primary and special ed. I'm sure secondary is too. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that you're not at all. But we are inherently a very creative bunch of people and professionals. And is there a risk that AI is going to take that creativity away from us and make it, will we be relying on something else to put that creativity in? That makes me a little bit sad actually, because we are a wonderfully creative bunch. So I think that's the two big things for us.
Yeah, that's two great contributions. Thanks very much. And Gareth, what's your thoughts? Gareth, what I want to know, Gareth, is are you equally as creative as Melissa? That's ultimately.
Well, I was going to come back on that. I think there's
secondary teachers creative.
From a secondary point of view, I think it's about de-skilling staff. I think that would be kind of threefold. I think just to come back on the creativity, it would be about de-skilling staff and the reliance upon the AI because they thought it was going to do the job for them. But I think from an SLT round the table type discussion, there's a real twofold really, the idea of data protection, data breaches, and the real concern around that and what that means. And that level of fear factor, the ICO, and at all that level, that we must get policy in place and we must do it properly. And I think at the other extreme is the teaching. So the de-skilling of staff, but equally the de-skilling of young people and the changing nature of how education is going to look at secondary level, where you've got students that are writing NEA, or as we perhaps once knew it as coursework, and EPQs and stuff like that, that now I could plug something into ChatGPT and pull something off and pretend it's my work. So it's also the de-skilling of students. So it's ensuring that that's the kind of real sort of conversation at my secondary school level. So interesting, but kind of twofold.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. And Peter?
I think for me, given the fact that we've, more than sort of dipped our toe into the water, I think it begins from, and I'll come to the main thing that would perhaps, give me sleepless nights. I think if you can try and work with an architecture, and I'll use the phrase, that is as safe and secure as possible, which is a high aspiration. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to weld yourself to Google or Microsoft. But obviously from the GDPR perspective, it's better to work with learning models where your own stuff stays inside your own model and things like that. So my first layer of inner protection was to say, this is the solution we're going with because we have assurances as far as we know that we've got not a containable environment, but an environment that we've got some idea of the parameters of, rather than the Wild West. As you say, everybody jumped on ChatGPT that afternoon it launched and the whole world changed, didn't it? For me, I think the dichotomy is particular as students get a little bit older and transition from primary to secondary, how we continue to impart into them in a rapidly changing information, truth versus lies world, the role of AI, how it will play, not necessarily to de-skill them, but actually augment them. I'm a history graduate by nature, so I was always taught to compare sources. We've got a world, haven't we, where decisions and arguments start in a nanosecond now. So it's about giving students that composure time, and also recognizing that we need to introduce and show them, because they already know about it, how this could shape their world of work in the future. I think we've got to be quite pragmatic and understand, just like the arrival of the internet. And I use the analogy of road safety. I'm a child of the Tufty Club. People still got knocked over. so you can impart all the guidance and all the wisdom and show people, a correct pathway. Human beings are unpredictable and unpredictable things can happen. So I think we've got to keep AI from an education perspective a very close companion and to talk about it, but perhaps use, as many positives as possible about this as an augmentation. I laughed this morning when I was reading for today. Most of us would have grown up with Windows 97 and the annoying paperclip.
Yes, sir.
There's an early example of, embedded AI. Personally, I prefer the dog with the blowtorch. It's been with us so long. But what's happened now is that exponential growth. And since ChatGPT, we're 2.5 years down the line, everyone's got AI plastered everywhere. It's like putting the word turbo on a car in the
Yes.
1980s.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's about discriminating between what's real AI and what's kind of badged up to make something look like a good product.
It's a great point. Absolutely great point. Tim, from a developer slash organization perspective, hearing Melissa's, Gareth's, Peter's kind of concerns, their own and sharing on kindly from their staff and so on, and strategically as well. What's your thoughts on this? What's your view and feedback and comments?
Yeah, I think it's all about, as everybody in the call is doing, is making sure you know what your suppliers are doing and what their parameters of whatever AI they put into their product. And let's face it, if you look at most ed tech products now, somebody is some claim of some AI in there, including in products that you already have that AI has suddenly been added to without your consent often, or been, oh, we've got this new AI feature. And it's about knowing what those parameters are. I know from talking to colleagues in the industry, there is a whole range of different approaches to AI, some of which, as a head teacher, I would have been incredibly happy with, including our own and others, obviously, and some that I would definitely not be, but that are quite widely used by schools across the country. And it's really, really interesting. I think there is also that kind of fear that as a supplier, we're really trying to help with about people not knowing enough to know the questions to ask. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? You can go to our website, for example, and download guides to what questions to ask suppliers, including us. But in terms of, okay, so you've got AI in your product, what questions actually should you be asking the suppliers to help keep it safe? Because if it's a very different level of information security risks potentially than it is from just a normal kind of data based supplier, and those kind of questions. And because it's so new to everybody, it's so confusing. If you think about the breadth of changes and choice, when I first started, when AI first came on the market, as a developer, I could choose from 3 models to use. Now I can choose from I think about 85 from the 3 main vendors, different models, even within Google, Microsoft, and Anthropic models. And then DeepSeek appears and other things appears and new models appear and Hugging Face all the time and things. And they're all are very different in how they work and also very different in the security risks that they may or may not pose to schools.
I
Thank you
would,
very much indeed.
Tim, I'd just jump in there. I agree with you totally. And also, you'll have seen the rise of sort of bespoke micro AI applications, task and finish things. There's a product that belongs to the key group with Arbor, which is called Robin, which will automatically read every website in a conglomerate or LA and find, critical errors in policies or gaps or non-compliance in a nanosecond compared to a human viewer spending days poring over the same thing. So there's a clear distinction, isn't there, about these big LMs and then these little tiny things that you can buy to do, one-shot jobs.
Yeah, 100%. But even so, most of those one-shot job pieces, including that product that you mentioned, do use large language models behind the scenes.
Of course, yeah.
It's their own version. Well, not their own version, but their own prompting and instructions around them. And it's important to make sure that they are done in a secure way, particularly when it comes to data. Our product has lots of student, parent, staff data in it, and so do lots of AI products. But it's really important that you know how that is being managed in a way that is safe and secure, particularly if AI is prowling over or be able to gain insights from your data. Obviously, that presents very different risks, and it's about knowing those questions to ask. And any good supplier, which most people tend to be in EdTech, will be more than happy to answer those questions for you, or should be. And if they're not, well, that probably says more than you need to know.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And I think one of the points I just want to kind of highlight that's come out here, which is really, really important, is there is so many organizations that will email, I'm talking education suppliers, that will email you saying, we've got some exciting news. We've launched AI today. You've already got it on your system. Well, what does that mean? what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that children can all of a sudden do different things or get access to certain things? What's the safeguarding behind it? What's the due diligence applied? So just because from a supplier perspective, they're excited about it doesn't mean it's controlled and it's to your level of comfort as leaders and to your satisfaction and passes your due diligence. So I think that's a really great point that's come out here. So thank you for that. And I think the other point that's very, very important is, and this is going back to your comments, Peter, is the importance to have a strategy behind this, not necessarily to have different components, different grains of sand bolting in here and there to try and do this, that, and the other, but to have an overarching strategy from top down and bottom up and everything in between. I think there's very, very important points to be made around there. We're going to flip it around now. So we've had a little bit of what do we need to be cautious about. Let's turn it on its head. Let's be excited. Let's have an exciting webinar. So the question is, and we're going to go in reverse order this time. So we're going to start with Peter, then Gareth and Melissa, and then Tim will come back to you again, if you don't mind, at the end of that sequence. If there was one thing, Peter, that you're most excited about, that your staff, your senior team, and your classroom practitioners are most excited about when it comes to AI, Peter, what do you think that is, please, and why?
It's split into two parts, but it's the same thing. So it is the ability for a practitioner or a head of department or a subject leader to get right to the nub of maybe some new content based on their existing planning and the corresponding time saving that can be achieved. And I'll have said time saving many times in this webinar. I really can't impress upon the audience the improvement that you can generate with your staff if you've done everything that we've talked about, that you've got the safeguards to the best of your ability, you've got a good strategic partner with you, you've got a strategy, and you're saying to everyone, so my trust Gemini, premium, that is the only learning model that you can use to conduct your work inside the trust, because I'm protecting you, because that's been our weapon of choice. The big players have all got reasonably good guarantees from the DFE that they're producing something that's fit for purpose. And then to staff, go and explore. I think we were the third trust to deploy Gemini on such a scale. One of the first was the Leo Trust in London. And they had a study that Anglia Ruskin University did about 8-9 months ago. And it demonstrated a very demonstrable 30-minute saving to the workload of a teacher every day, times 37, 38 weeks. That's a lot of well-being time that you can get back. And I've certainly had some of my staff say that in a single PPA session of 90 minutes or 120 minutes, they've done weeks of work, not just next week's work.
Wow.
And then
One word. Wow.
then they've got the freedom to go and deliver that, to have an unconscious competence that the structure of the lesson's there, but they can take it in new directions because they've been deburdened from having to plan in 9 different dimensions, because that's been taken care of and they can bend and flex. Not the panacea by all, we're still learning, but we've been very, very rigorous as leaders to say this is here to augment you, not to supplant you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And Gareth?
Yeah, I think, again, with what Peter's just said, we've seen a shift post 2020 following COVID, where workload wellbeing, and it's a national horizon thing, isn't it? In terms of that's a real focus for staff, and therefore the advent of AI supporting workload, giving teachers more time back to actually perfect their craft in the classroom rather than doing the feedback, the marking, goes back to what was also said earlier. It's still going back through that to check what it's actually putting out, that it's not incorrect, that the staff are actually checking on it, but it is exactly that, giving the time back to those. Certainly our early adopters in school, you can see it, that the time that they've saved as a result of using platforms to support that. So definitely workload and wellbeing.
Thanks, Gareth. Melissa, what are yourself and your colleagues most excited about the future and the now of AI?
Yeah, I think for our school context, the most exciting bit is all the assistive technology we use. So our cohort is predominantly non-verbal. So we use a lot of communication devices. And I think the advancement in those just over the last couple of years has been phenomenal. And the workload that goes into, inputting and making those individualized and making sure that they are the voice of that individual child, we have saved a lot of time on the programs that have adopted the AI into them. And children now have a voice much better than what they had previous. So that's a great benefit for us. To be completely honest, as I said at the beginning, we haven't really delved our toes into any more than kind of that at the minute. We will, of course we will, as Peter said, it's inevitable, we've got to, and we absolutely will. It's just we are probably being overcautious, if I'm honest, but it's great to hear the feedback from you guys on how it is working. I think in reality for us, it's going to be more around time saving on things like policy and more formal things, probably away from the individualized planning, certainly in the next couple of years. We'll see how we go moving forward, but I can see real benefits of saving those admin sides of things on workload.
Thanks very much. Yes, Peter. Thank you, Melissa.
I just want to add something. Obviously, sometimes what I'm about to say doesn't necessarily impact on an individual school, and that's not because I'm 15 and we're brilliant. It's a really credible response back to unions who obviously want to protect their workforce from workload, well-being, stress. And obviously the DFE came out quite early, didn't it, with saying that one major benefit of AI deployed in education is reducing workload and reducing repetition. So if you are in a position where you're using AI cautiously and moving forwards and you've got a plan, at least come the day when someone says, okay, so what else are you doing to improve the workload and well-being of your teachers and your support staff, you can say, well, we're very credibly using AI to achieve some of those. We can, if you go and find the Leo report, you'll see where the tangible time savings were. So you could almost, adopt those.
Super. Thank you very much, Peter. Tim, again, same as before, a little twist, a little curve on the same question. From a developer perspective, but again, having that double cap, if you like, with your former head teacher, but your current role of developing and evolving AI for your business, what are you most excited about, Tim, in terms of being able to support Melissa, Gareth, Peter, and all of the other schools and mats across the country? What are you most excited about in regards to AI?
I think it's exactly the same points we've just all made about time saving and the amount of time that we can see that particular leaders for our product, but teachers for other products can save using AI. We know, for example, that some statistics recently from one of our users that they managed to cut the time to create analysis and data reports by 90%, which is an amazing saving, going from a day to under an hour to get reports and governance reports and things like that out, and CEFs and SDIPs and all these documents. As a head teacher, I used to love honest writing and pouring my time over, and most of the time is spent doing the data analysis and crunching and things like that. And it's those kind of times that we can leave. I think personally, I'm really excited about what we can do for school leaders. Obviously, classroom teachers stuff. There's lots of AI tools out there that we're claiming to save classroom teachers' time. Some do that very well. There's been probably less focus on AI for leadership and how it can support leaders, and that's what I'm really excited about. And I think that is the second wave now of what's coming out. Obviously, we're part of it, but lots of other companies as well that will hopefully help save school leaders' time so that you can best support your staff rather than have to spend time doing the bits that we all know we've got to do as leaders, but nobody particularly enjoys doing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much indeed. And again, I've got a couple of interesting questions now. You could think of it as part A and part B. These are the last two questions of today. So this is about advising education solution providers out there. So every single person here, I'm sure, so Melissa, Gareth, Peter, and Tim as a provider, of course, your schools are jam-packed full of edtech, I'm sure, in different ways. And Melissa, you've said adaptive technology as well, which is awesome. So if there's any asks, please consider this for my school or the education sector as a whole, to existing established companies, existing established products, so not new ones that have been around many, many years, what would you ask of them when it comes to how they are considering the development or deployment of AI into their existing products that you may have in your school or mat? And this time we'll start with Gareth, if you don't mind, Gareth.
Yeah, I think Tim's he covered it off early, because something Tim said, it resonated with me. It was about starting with the problem, not the AI. And I think that's the key, isn't it? So again, before Peter mentioned about things being added within other AI products, and I've seen that on products that we've taken on, all of a sudden there's a new update on it, but it's actually, do I need that? Or is it that the product creators are in contact with education, identifying what the needs are, and for us to then trial that and stress test that. So rather than actually give you the idea, I think my point is, what is the problem? And then can AI be part of that solution rather than stick AI into the solution? Because we don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, AI for AI's sake, Gareth. Yeah, AI for AI's sake. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
could be. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Certainly.
That's really interesting. Thank you. And Melissa?
Yeah, Gareth, I agree completely. I think that's a really great point. I think we are so niche in our setting, and I think we spend our life with any kind of supplier, saying we're constantly trying to fit square pegs into round holes, and it would be lovely for more companies to actually think about the actual. SEND is branded out there all over the place, and it's great, but actually we're so niche in that big umbrella that it would be lovely for more companies to think, okay, so yeah, this is SEND, but actually this real severe end, what does that look like? Because there's not many of us, so of course, we're not a big population to look at, but it would be lovely for some suppliers to really think about that much more severe, profound end of need.
That's really interesting. And Melissa, I know you and I have exchanged emails about this over weeks gone by. And what we've kind of discussed loosely, isn't it, Melissa, is an organization, for example, might say, oh, and we also cover schools that do it, or a provision of SEND. Well, it may just be marketing talk. It may just be their way of trying to create a field that they can support. What we're talking about here is an AI solution which Melissa's school can absolutely 100% benefit from, embrace, get huge amounts of value from, a purpose built for a true SEND environment. That's what we're talking about, Melissa, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, it's starting to happen slowly, but the more it can happen, I mean, the better. And also, there's across the country, numbers of SEND are going through the roof. So we're not talking about products for my school. We're talking about products for all of your schools, because all of us as head teachers, yes, I've got a lot of those specialised needs, but actually all teachers are teachers of SEN now. There's too many numbers for special schools. And I think, in coming weeks, when white papers and green papers start coming out, that's going to get even more of a thing where teachers are going to have a lot more SEND in their classrooms. And so hopefully we won't be so niche, but it is nice when we are thought of.
Yeah, absolutely, Melissa. Thank you. And Peter, again, what would your advice be to established products, established companies with these products out there? How can they get it right to support your schools and your trusts?
I think it's ultimately a matter about them being brave and honest, because, as you say, everything's everything's got AI bolted to it, whether it's real AI or whether it's just a bad piece of badge engineering. I think, Tim, your comments on that have been good. I think it's about what do you going back to Gareth's point and where you came from. What do you actually want it to do before you think, I've got to add this to my portfolio? I suppose a good analogy is MIS providers are all snapping up every single other application. So they're a one basket shop, which has its advantages, but also has a critical point of failure that if, like Bromcom, it goes down, schools are scuppered, or if a school gets cyber attacked, they're taken out. So if history teaches us anything, it's usually when technology races ahead, pockets of traditional solutions still kind of stay there. And I think those developers of software products or applications, they just need to think, do I need to put AI in it because I'm going to lose market share? Or do I choose to use AI or not to make my product better for the end user? And whether that's, an assistive device for a person with specific needs, or whether it's a way of ploughing through 1,000 pages. I wanted to use one massive analogy. My COO and I were instrumental in reading for us sins every single iteration of the COVID guidance in that period, 2020 to 21, over 100 iterations before they started telling you the changes. We tested 2 versions in Gemini, and it took 0.5 seconds to tell us the difference between the two. And I think that would have saved my COO 4 calendar days of his life.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty incredible, isn't it?
So yeah,
absolutely
but I think
incredible.
I think it's be brave whether you need it. Is it going to add value?
Yeah.
It's a bit like saying, if you build a car that will do 200 miles an hour, are you going to build one that will do 210?
Interesting. Yeah. And does it need to go 200 miles
Does it
an
need
hour?
to go to
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Tim, again, with your developer hat on, what's your thoughts on the comments so far?
Yeah, I think it is that for suppliers to really reflect on whether they need AI, and if they are going to add AI, what benefit it's going to bring, and do schools actually want it, and that there are many suppliers out there who may not embrace AI and will still be really valid and solutions that schools will choose over new AI shiny solutions because actually they deliver the end product better, maybe than the AI solution. But for suppliers who are going to put an AI into products, it's about making sure they do that in a really safe way and respecting the type of data and the type of information that schools are dealing with. And it's not just the same as corporate AI. And I've been at an event today full of corporate AI and data people, and you talk about education data, and it's a whole new world. And all these tools that other people are just bolting onto theirs just aren't necessarily made for the sector that we work in and haven't got the safeguards that we need. So I think for suppliers, it's
Great
just
point.
have some heavy degree of caution about how you're doing it and to take their time to make sure they're doing it correctly and in consultation with users and given the ability to have it turned off. And I think that's the really frustrating things I've seen looking at other suppliers. They put AI into a tool and there's no way for that school to say, actually, no, thank you. We'll have
That's a
the
great
call that was
point.
before.
Yeah, that's a great point. The excitement of look at what we've done versus a can we show you and see if it's suitable and something you want to adopt and something you want to use rather than shoving it on you and forcing it, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. And it also helps us as developers be able to get solutions in teachers' hands quicker than it would have done without AI sometimes. And customers can say we need this, and not necessarily coding by AI, but AI helps deliver solutions quicker. But we will always do that in consultation what customers actually want and schools want, who are customers or not,
Yeah.
who are saying to us, actually, we've got this issue, and we're like, okay, we can solve it in this way, shape, or form. And I say sometimes that's AI, sometimes it isn't. And I think that's really key for all suppliers. And I think hopefully we'll do that. I think just to call out, I was going to say earlier, if schools want to know kind of good questions to ask, then Brown Jacobson has done some really amazing work about AI due diligence, and I've had lots of conversations with their head of schools and AI around that. So, and that's all pretty much free of charge. Obviously, they'll charge you for some things, but, but there's loads of guidance on Brown Jacobson's website for free if you want some completely impartial supply or agnostic about those kind of questions to ask. And suppliers, I say, we like it when people ask us those questions. Well, I do definitely. So.
Sure. That one of the things that's really interesting there that everyone's touched on, Peter in particular, is will education solution providers start to say when they're competing, Peter used the word market share, great, it's a great point. Are they going to be trying to say to schools, well, look at how much better we are because we do AI and the closest competitor that you're currently using or that you've told us is up for renewal in the next 3 to 6. They don't do that. They don't do that. Well, that's going to be really interesting, isn't it? Because again, it's perception versus value versus impact versus do you want it versus do you need it. All of the things that's come through from the webinar tonight is going to be incredibly interesting over days, weeks, months to come. But organizations saying, we do that. They don't do that. That whole competitive supplier environment is going to be very interesting. With 1 minute to go, we're going to call that a night, and we're going to bring it to a close. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody for coming tonight, in particular our special guests of Melissa, Gareth, Peter, and Tim. Thank you very much. I hope for everybody in attendance today and everybody that will be watching this on demand over days and weeks to come. Thank you very much, and please let us know whether it's live or on demand if you have any questions, and we can always have a look at those and get back to you. But thank you very much, Melissa. Very grateful. Gareth, thank you very much. Peter, always a pleasure indeed. Tim, thank you for your expertise from a supply perspective.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, everyone.
Thanks.